episode number 1. We're going to be going over the scientific method, or a buzzword that's going on right now is science-based training, science-driven training, and data-driven training. I'm kind of talk about that, and I guess the simplest way to go through it is to think back when you were in 6th or 8th or even younger. You guys went over and learned the scientific method, and that's kind of what science-based training is. And people are using these buzzwords, and we'll probably talk about more buzzwords as time goes on about how people in the training industry use buzzwords to get you to come in and work with them and make them seem like they're much more intelligent, or this is a good option to do, and I'd be careful of that. Science-based training or science-driven training or data-driven training is not a bad thing. We utilize that here, and the whole point is to make an observation to figure out what we need to do to help you reach your goals and track that data along the way. So I'll kind of walk through, if you can go back with me when you were in about, again, 4th, maybe 6th, 8th grade, and talk about the scientific method. So let's walk through the steps. Okay, so we've got, the first thing you got to do is make an observation. Then you've got to create or develop a hypothesis. And then you've got to perform an experiment or challenge your hypothesis. We're going to collect data. We're going to analyze data and prove or disprove your hypothesis. And depending on if your hypothesis was proven or disproven, if it was disproven, we're going to propose a new hypothesis and test that. So yeah, you know, scientific method, it's like, great, Curtis, I'll walk through those steps. Let's kind of talk about how it's used in the training scenario from my viewpoint. Say somebody comes in and their goal is for their son or daughter, or even for you, right, to get faster, to run faster. And that's your first goal, and we walk through an assessment. We make an observation. We may do, you know, multiple different tests to kind of corroborate and figure out what's the main thing we got to work on, what's the main thing you got to work on. You know, and in my mind, I might have a scientific way of training you to reach those goals, but depending on what you and your body specifically needs is what we got to work on. That's the direction we're going to go. So the whole point of the assessment is to, 1, make an observation, to figure out with your body and your system what's going on, what we need to get going better, and kind of go from there. So, you know, that's the first marker. So make an observation with the person, what's going on. If you go to somebody that doesn't do an assessment and looks at you and you, not compares you to everybody else, I might run and be careful of that, okay? Then from that, we would go and create a hypothesis. So if this kid wants to run faster, it might be that his hip flexors are not producing enough force for him to actually, or her to actually get enough strength in the hamstrings or glutes to help them run faster. It might be that their trunk or core is weak and they don't know how to control it while other things are moving. It just kind of depends. So we build that hypothesis based on what your goals are, okay? Then we're gonna perform an experiment. What that experiment would be is a 3 to 4 week long program to help you reach your goals. If you are a person that comes in that is very strong but is not very explosive, we may need to do a program for 3 to 4 weeks to teach you how to move load and track that, right? And does the place that you're going to have equipment to track and see, are you getting faster? Are you lifting things faster? With good form, but under control, are you flexing your muscles faster? And here we have that. So to kind of make sure that I'm removing my bias to where it's like, wow, that kid or that person lifted that weight really fast, and they're getting faster. The great thing is we have these things called tendon units here to monitor and see if they're lifting faster, if that's your goal. If you've got an athlete that's explosive and quick, but they don't have strength and they need a bigger engine, a beefier engine, which would be their muscles, we would need to work on full-on strength, and then how do we track that? So that's what the experiment would be. Throughout that process, you would collect data, which would be how much weight you lifted, is their form good, all this different types of stuff, to make sure that they're, you know, reaching their goals based off of our hypothesis. Then we would analyze that data, probably retest, and we might have different parameters from the assessment to see whether you're actually progressing and reaching those goals. And then we would prove or disprove that hypothesis. And I think the biggest thing with that is a lot of people get married to their hypothesis saying that this will work for everybody. You have no idea if it'll work. You've got to pay attention. The human body is very, very complex, and it can play games with you as a trainer, or, you know, it might mess you, but you might be as a person that's training, why did that not work, or why didn't that go very well? It doesn't mean it didn't work. It may mean that your body acclimated really fast and we've got to change things up. It just depends. And I guess to be careful with that, talking about buzzwords, right? A lot of people say they do science-based training, and they're not implementing, in my opinion, those principles. They're using it as a way to get your money. And I don't think that that's right in the fitness community, and I think that you should protect yourself, right? There are companies that buy these technological things and use it to collect data, but if they don't know what they're doing with that data, it doesn't really matter, because data just collected is just data. It's just numbers, it's just whatever, but if you don't know how to use that to apply it to make an appropriate decision, it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, man, science-based training, be careful. That's a real big buzzword, data-driven training. And then the other one would be science-driven training. Anything that's saying that they are being scientific with training is not a bad thing. If they're actually implementing and doing that, they're doing the best for you to remove themselves out of the equation. So I would go with somebody that does that, hands down. But a lot of people may say they're doing that, but they're not technically doing that. And I would investigate. I would ask questions. And that's kind of going into the next video, which we'll talk about next month, which is interviewing your trainer. But yeah, man, that's episode 1. If you have questions, please contact me. If you want to hear more about this and want me to expand upon this, I would love to. But this is kind of a forum for me to get information out, to get people talking, to get people excited, to get people thinking for themselves versus just, you know, being a robot and just kind of working through the mill. Like most places, they run you through a circuit, they run you through the mill, and that's not our goal here, and that's not my goal. So I want to kind of encourage people to think for themselves, ask questions. Questions are powerful. So I hope you enjoyed the first episode. I'm looking forward to episode number 2, which will be coming out next month in March 2018. So yeah, that was great, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And please, if you have questions, please reach out.